Good morning, guys. Welcome back. Today is our second session related to Docker. So today we are going to understand what is Docker file, what is Docker registry, and what is Docker compose, and how to run our applications, Java application, Spring Boot application, Python application by using Docker. So in the last session, we discussed what is Docker, why we need to go for the Docker, how to set up Docker software in the Linux machine, what is Docker image, what is Docker container, and what is Docker architecture. So can you tell me what is Docker? What is Docker, guys? Docker is a containerization software which is used to simplify our application deployment process in multiple environments. In the real time, once the code is ready, the developers done the coding part, that code should be deployed into multiple environments like dev environment, SIT, UAT, pilot, production environments will be available. When we want to deploy our application into particular environment, the softwares required for the application should be installed. Like Java is required, database is required, server is required, front-end technology is required. So installing these softwares in all these machines is a difficult process. If we do any mistake in the installation process, then the code which is working in one system may not work in the another system. So here, to avoid this kind of environmental issues, we are going to follow containerization technique. So by using this containerization, we can package our application code and dependencies of the application as a single unit. By using Docker, we can package our application code and application dependencies, and we can run them inside a container. What is a container? Container is a virtual machine in which our application is going to execute. In order to execute our application by using containers, we are using Docker. Docker is a containerization software. And we discussed about Docker architecture. When we are talking about Docker architecture, mainly we discussed about Docker file. We discussed about Docker file. So can you tell me what is the Docker file? What is the Docker file? Docker file contains instructions to build a Docker image. If you want to run your application by using Docker, image should be created. In order to create the Docker image, we need to create a Docker file for our application. In that Docker file, we are going to write some instructions to build the Docker image. That means what dependencies are required for the application, we are going to configure in the Docker file. In the project, pom.xml will be available. Docker file also will be available. What is pom.xml? It is a Maven configuration to specify libraries required for the application. Docker file is used to specify dependencies required for the application. When I say dependencies, the softwares that are required for the application. Once the Docker file is available, we are going to build Docker image. What will be there in the Docker image? Code plus dependencies will be packaged as a single unit. So all the Docker images we are going to store in the Docker registry. Docker registry is a Docker hub. So there are so many images already available in the Docker registry, free images available. You can use them to run the softwares. If you want, your application also can be packaged as a Docker image, and you can also store in the Docker registry. We are using Docker hub as a registry here. Once the image is available, we can run that image. Whenever we run the Docker image, it is going to create a Docker container. So when you go for Docker container, when you run the Docker image, container will be created. Inside the container, our application will be executed. Container is a separate machine. So this is the Docker architecture that we discussed in the last session. Okay, look at this one. So Docker file will be available. Using that file, we are going to create a Docker image. The Docker image we will push to the Docker Hub, and we are going to run the Docker image. With that, Docker container will be created. Once a Docker image is available, you can run that Docker image in any machine. So you no need to check in your machine which operating system is available, which version of Java is available, which version of MySQL database is available. That's not important now, because in our machine, one container will be created. Inside that container, all the dependencies will be installed. So this is containerization by using virtualization technique. Virtualization means running one operating system in the another operating system. Docker also doing the same thing internally. Whenever you create a container, one virtual machine will be created. In that virtual machine, our application is going to execute. So how many containers we can create by using one image? By using one image, how many containers we can create? Multiple containers you can create. In the real time, when we are deploying the application, our application will have multiple containers. Nothing but it will run in multiple servers. Why we need to run our application in the multiple servers? For load balancing. If you run your application in only one container, all the requests will go to single container. Burden will be increased on that container. So to reduce burden on the container, we will create multiple containers for our application, like 5 containers, 10 containers we are going to create. Then load will be distributed to all the containers. If you are running multiple containers for one application, those are called instances of the application. One API will have multiple instances. Multiple instances means multiple containers will be created. Who will create the containers in the real-time project? Kubernetes. So manual creation will not be available in the real-time project. We will use Kubernetes to create the containers. Kubernetes is called orchestration platform. Docker is called containerization platform. Containerization means package your application code plus dependencies as one unit. Orchestration means managing the containers. Create the container, update the container, stop the container, start the container, recreate them, increase the count of the containers, decrease the count of the containers. Such a kind of admin operations will be taken care by Kubernetes software in the real time. Docker plus Kubernetes, excellent combination to deploy our real-time applications. These are called DevOps tools, Docker and Kubernetes. But nowadays, developers also should know how to work with this containerization plus orchestration platform. And today, we are manually creating the Docker image. We are creating the Docker container. So in the real time, that will be automated by using Jenkins. Next weekend, we have Jenkins workshop. So what is the Jenkins? How we are going to run our deployment by using Jenkins. So if you go for Jenkins, if you just click the button, Jenkins will download the code from GitHub. Jenkins will package by using Maven. Jenkins will create the Docker image. Jenkins will create the Docker container. Complete CI/CD we are going to automate. Continuous integration and continuous deployment by using Jenkins software. Next Saturday, Sunday, we are going to work on Jenkins concept. Are you guys clear with my point? Good. Yeah. So today we are going to discuss how to work with Docker images creation. Fine. And we learned some Docker commands also. We discussed about some Docker commands. Now, first let me connect to my Linux machine. In that I have installed Docker software yesterday. Okay. So if anybody is not aware how to install the Docker, I have given a GitHub link also. In that step-by-step process is available, and you can replay the yesterday video. In the yesterday video, so some point is there where the Docker installation is started. So go to this video. Here you can see that Docker installation. Yes, here I have started the Docker installation process. First, I have taken one. I have logged in into my AWS cloud account. In this, in this AWS cloud account, I created one Linux machine by using EC2 service. Then I connected to that Linux machine by using mobile extram software. Once I connected to the Linux machine, then the commands are available to execute. So I have executed those commands here. Once I execute the commands, the Docker software is installed. These are the commands. So just to copy all these commands and execute. So here if you see, in the Linux, different flavors will be available. Amazon Linux available, Ubuntu Linux is available. We are using Amazon Linux. For Amazon Linux, those are the commands. If anybody using Ubuntu Linux, below commands available to install the Docker in the Ubuntu Linux. For the project people, Linux classes will be available and AWS cloud classes will be there. Then you will get the clarity. What is Amazon Linux? What is Ubuntu Linux? What is Red Hat Linux? Okay, so we are able to install the Docker in the Linux machine. Now, anybody don't know, you just go through that video around after 1 hour, 10 minutes, at 1 hour, we started in the yesterday 2-hour session. After 1 hour, we have seen Docker setup in the Linux machine. You can go through that video. Okay, now, so today I'm going to connect with my Linux machine, which I created yesterday. Let me log in into my AWS account. Yes, I logged in into my account. Go to EC2. You no need to create one more machine. Already the machine we created yesterday, we can reuse the same machine. So Docker server I created yesterday. Select this machine, instance state, and start the instance. The machine is getting started. Once the machine is started, public IP will be available. Once the machine started, public IP will be available. Using that public IP, you can connect with that machine. I'm waiting for that to come into the running state. Yeah, it is running now. Select this one. Copy the public IP. Mobile extram. Session. SSH session. Username of the machine. EC2 user. Private key. Docker workshop PEM file, which we downloaded yesterday. Yes, I'm able to connect with my machine. You can verify Docker is installed or not. Yes, yesterday only we installed this Docker. Good. Now let us go and check Docker images. So it is going to show you what are the Docker images available. So there is one Docker image is available. How to check the containers? Docker PS. Any container in the running state? No container is in the running state. How to check the stopped containers? PS-A. PS-A. Yes, there is one container which is in the stopped status. There is a container which is in the stopped status. I want to delete all the stopped containers and unused images now. What is the command? Docker system prune -a. Yes, confirm. So with this, my containers and unused images got removed. So good, fine. So we discussed about several Docker commands yesterday. Docker images command, which is used to display all the Docker images available in our application. Docker pull to download the Docker image. Docker run to create the Docker container. Docker PS to display the running containers. PS-A to display running plus stopped containers. RMI to delete the Docker image. RM to delete stopped containers. Docker stop to stop the running container. Docker start to restart to restart our stopped container. What is the Docker logs container ID? When our application running in the container, I want to see some logs. I want to see the logs of the application. Then you can use Docker logs command. Docker system prune-a to delete unused images plus stopped containers. And we are able to run one Spring Boot REST API application. This is my public image available in the Docker Hub. Anybody can pull the image and they can run the image. When we are running the image, we are going for Docker run command, -d, -p, port mapping, and image name we are giving. Here -d represents detached mode. What is the meaning of detached mode? After creating the container, my terminal should be available to execute the further commands, to execute the next commands. What is -p here? It is a port mapping. This is a host port and this is container port. In my Spring Boot application, I configured port number as a 9090. In the host machine, you can give any port number, guys. In the host machine, you can give any port number. It's not mandatory that you need to give only 9090. I can give like this also. Host port can be anything. Container port we already configured in the boot application. When you give this as a 1111, in the security group, we need to enable host port. You got my point. Whatever the host port we are giving as a 1111, we need to enable host port in EC2 VM security group inbound rule to allow the traffic. Okay, so if you give as a 1111 in the security group inbound rule, you need to enable this port number, then only you can access your application. On which port you are going to access our application? Container port or host port? We need to use host port to access our application. Okay, if I configure 9090, what is the meaning? First one is representing as a host port, second one is representing as a container port. We need to enable host port in the security group. Using that host port, we are going to access our application. Is this clear for everyone? Anybody faced any problems while practicing yesterday commands? Anybody facing any issue while doing the practice? No issue. You're good. Okay. So, yeah, fine, guys. In the last session, we discussed about these concepts. We discussed what is Docker, what is containerization, advantages with the containerization, Docker architecture, Docker setup, Docker commands, and running Spring Boot application using Docker image. Today, we are going to see what is a Docker file, how to write that Docker file, by using Docker file, how to create our own Docker image, how to push that Docker image into Docker registry. Okay, fine. Let's get started. First one, Docker file. Docker file is used to write instructions to build the Docker image. It contains instructions to build Docker image. Okay, so we will specify application dependencies here. What are the dependencies are required for the application? How that application should be executed, that we are going to specify by using Docker file. So you will use some keywords to write the Docker file. So there are some keywords available to write the Docker file. What are the keywords we are going to use? These are called Docker file keywords. In the interview, they will ask this question also. Can you tell me what keywords available to write the Docker file? So there are several keywords available. Let's understand those keywords. First one is from keyword. We are going to use from keyword, and we will use maintainer keyword. Maintainer keyword. Then we can use copy keyword. We can use run keyword. We can use CMD keyword. We can use entry point keyword, and we can use expose keyword. Okay, so these are important keywords that we are going to use. There are some other keywords also available. Work dir keyword is available. There is a keyword called work dir keyword is also available. So if you want to write a Docker file, then you need to know about these keywords. By using these keywords only, we will write the Docker file. By using the Docker file, we will create the Docker image. Using the Docker image, we will create the Docker container. Are you clear? Good. So first one, can you read the keywords available for the Docker file? From keyword is available, maintainer keyword available, copy keyword available, run keyword, CMD, expose, work dir, entry point. Come on, repeat once again. What are the keywords available? From, maintainer, copy, run, CMD, expose, work dir, and entry point. Okay, now let's understand what is the purpose of these keywords. So if you know the purpose of these keywords, then we can write the Docker file for the application. Got it? Online students, are you able to follow me? Are you able to follow me? Is my voice clear for everyone? Yes. Yesterday link notes I told you already. Join in this group, you will get it after the class. Yeah. Good. Now, first one, from keyword, guys. First one is a from keyword in the Docker file. Every Docker file will start with from keyword. Every Docker file will start with the from keyword. From keyword, it is used to specify. It is used to specify base image required for our application. Now, my application is a Java based application. So in order to run my application, Java software is required. To run my application, Java software is required. So how to tell to Docker that I want Java software? By using this from Java JDK 11, something like that. When I specify from JDK 11, Docker will understand that this application requires JDK 11 to execute. Now that Docker is going to install JDK 11 software in the container. Suppose my application requires Tomcat server. My project is not on Spring Boot. It is a normal Java web application. For that, Tomcat is required. I'm going to specify from Tomcat 8.5, something like this. Then what will happen? The Docker will download Tomcat server 8.5 version in the container machine. Okay, so here this JDK 11 will be downloaded. Where it will be downloaded? In the container machine. What is a container? It is a Linux machine. So whenever you specify from JDK 11, it will set up a Linux virtual machine. In that JDK 11 will be installed. For example, I want to execute my application by using MySQL database, MySQL 8.5. So then Docker is going to download MySQL server in the container machine. For example, my application is developed based on Python. Then I'm going to specify from Python 3.x or 3.1 something. Which version of the Python is required? That I'm going to specify like this. So Python 3.1. So that means it is going to install Python required for the application. For example, my application is developed based on Angular or React. To run the Angular or React, Node version is required. Node.js should be installed to run the Angular application or React application. For them, we are going to specify from Node. So it is going to download the Node. Here, sir, can I write like this? Java 1.8? No. So whenever you are writing from keyword, this is a image name. You need to configure image name properly. For the Java, there is a image in the Docker Hub. For the Tomcat, there is a image in the Docker Hub. So you cannot write any name here. You need to write the you cannot write any name here. Whatever the sir, some people will write JDK, some people will write Java JDK. No, it's not your choice here. You need to find out what software is required for your application. For that software, you need to find out Docker image in the Docker Hub. That Docker image you have to specify. For example, for my application, Java software is required. Go to Docker Hub, hub.docker.com. So we have account. If you don't have, you can create the account in the Docker Hub. Now I want Java 17 or Java 11 for my application. So when I specify Java 11, okay. So here go to Java. When I go to Java, what are the images available, guys? This is the name. These are the image names available. You need to find out image names here. Those image names you need to configure. You need to find out image names here and you need to configure that image name. So if you specify JDK, okay, Java, how many people downloaded? 100 million plus downloads are available for the Java. Okay, so you find out the Java here, it is deprecated, use OpenJDK. So for the Java, the image name is OpenJDK, 1 billion plus downloads available. Go to OpenJDK. Now, what JDK you want, you can use that JDK image here. So these all are the image names available for the Java. So you identify which version of the Java is required for your application and you find the image. I want OpenJDK 11. Okay. Now you can find out the images. So that image I want only for Linux machine. So I want the image for the Linux machine. Linux operating system, Docker image is required for the application. So now if you want Tomcat image, then you find out Tomcat here. 500 million downloads available. So if you go to this Tomcat, Docker pull Tomcat is available. For the Tomcat, there is a image available. These all are the different versions, images available. That image name you need to configure in the from. If you specify from OpenJDK, what is the meaning of this OpenJDK now? That is the image name that we want to download for our application. That is a dependency that is required for our application. Are you clear? What is from keyword in the Docker file? It is used to specify base image required for our application. If your application is a Java based application, base image will be Java. If it is a Python, base image will be Python. If it is Angular or React, base image will be Node. If you want to run database by using Docker, your image will be MySQL image. So like this, we are going to use from keyword, which is used to specify base image required for our application. We can configure from keyword multiple times also when you want multiple images. For my application, Java is required and MySQL is also required. Then two base images are required to run our application. Are you guys clear? Yes. What is the from keyword in the Docker file? It is used to specify base image required for our application. What is the meaning of a base image? The dependency that is required to run our code. The software that is required to run our code, we are going to specify as a base image. Where we can find the base images? Docker Hub. In the Docker Hub, base images will be available. Okay. Next one. Maintainer keyword is available. Next one, maintainer keyword is available. It is used to specify the author of the Docker file. In a project, multiple team members will be available. Who is writing the Docker file in the project? That person is called author for the Docker file. Maintainer. It is used to specify. It is used to specify author of Docker file. So in our project, one Docker file will be available. Who created that Docker file? Who modified that Docker file? That person is called maintainer. Maintainer, I will specify something like this, Ashok. Or I will specify my email ID like this. Company email ID, I'm going to specify. When someone look at my Docker file, they should understand who created this Docker file. Are you able to follow this? Yeah. Next one, there is a keyword called copy. Keyword is available. Copy means copy the content from one location to another location. It is used to copy the files. It is used to copy the files from host machine to container machine. It is used to copy the files from host machine to container machine. So here my application code will be available on the host machine. My application code will be available on the host machine. I want to copy that code into container machine. My project is having a war file. War file is available in the host machine, but where that war should be executed? Inside the container. So to copy the files from host machine to container machine, we are going to use a keyword called copy. So how to use this copy keyword? We will specify copy. My application is having a jar file. Okay. In the target folder, jar file is available or war file is available. I want to copy that into user app Tomcat, user app Tomcat web app.war. Suppose my project is a normal web application which is packaged by using Maven. Now in the Maven project, target folder will be available where the jar or war will be there. So this is my source location. This is my destination location. So this is the path of the Tomcat server in the container machine. Okay. So Tomcat is a base image for the application. Tomcat server will be installed in the container. In that Tomcat server, I want to deploy my war file. War file is available in the host machine. From the host machine, war file should be copied to container machine. For that, we are going to use a command called copy command. Copy is used to copy the files from the host machine to container machine. Are you able to understand? So we discussed about three keywords in the Docker file. What are those three keywords in the Docker file? From keyword, maintainer keyword, copy keyword. What is the purpose of from keyword? To specify base image required for our application. Basically Java, Python, Node, MySQL, any kind of softwares that are required to run your code, we will specify them by using from. What is a maintainer? Maintainer is used to specify who is the author of this Docker file. The next one, copy command. What is the purpose of copy command? What is the purpose of copy command? It is used to copy the files from host machine to container machine. What files we will copy? Application code we will copy. Application code is available. We will download the code from the GitHub. That code we will package by using Maven. It will create a jar file or war file. That jar or war should be deployed in the container. So we need to copy our package application code into container. For that, we will use a command called copy command. Is this clear? Any questions? No. Next one, there is a command called run command is available. There is a command called run command is available. So here, run command, it is used to execute. It is used to execute instructions while creating Docker image. So at the time of Docker image is creating, I want to execute some instructions. To execute instructions while creating the Docker image, then we will go for run keyword. That means I want to write the command by using run like this. Hey, run command sudo yum install git. So inside the container, I want to install the Git software. Inside the container, I want to install Maven software. Okay. Sudo yum install Maven. Inside the container, I want to clone my code. Git to clone repo URL. That means any Linux instruction, any Linux command that you want to execute while creating the Docker image, that you can specify by using this run command. Okay. By using this run command, you can execute some instructions while creating the Docker image. For example, when I build a Docker image, I want to install Git, I want to install Maven, I want to download the code from the GitHub, I want to package the code by using Maven. All these things I want to do by using Docker file only. All these things I want to do by using Docker file only. Whenever I build a Docker image using my Docker file, it has to download the code from the GitHub. It has to compile the code by using Maven, package the code by using Maven, then create the Docker image. So if you want to execute any type of Linux commands while creating the Docker image, then you can do that by using run keyword. So tell me, what is the purpose of run keyword? It is used to execute instructions while creating Docker image. What type of instructions we will execute? If you want to download the code from the GitHub, if you want to package your code by using Maven, such kind of instructions can be executed while image creation. Such kind of instructions can be executed by using run command. Run will execute while creating Docker image. We can write multiple run instructions in the Docker file. Sir, I want to execute two commands. One is download the code from the GitHub, then package the code by using Maven. First one, downloading the code, Git cloning. Second one, Maven package. Two instructions I want to execute when my Docker image is getting created. So we can write multiple run instructions in Docker file. We can write multiple run instructions in the Docker file, and they will be processed. They will be processed from top to bottom. So in the order, all the run instructions are going to execute. Tell me, what is the purpose of run? What is the purpose of run? To execute the commands when the image creation is happening. When the image creation is happening. Okay. Next one, there is a command called CMD. There is a command called CMD. It is used to execute instructions. It is used to execute instructions while creating a container. Run will execute while creating the image. CMD will execute while creating the container. CMD is used to execute instructions while creating Docker container. Interview question: what is the difference between run and CMD in the Docker file? Run is used to execute the commands. CMD is also used to execute the commands. But what is the difference? Run is going to execute while creating the Docker image. CMD will execute while creating the Docker container. Are you clear? Now, so I can write CMD like this. I can write CMD. Inside the CMD, I'm going to specify Java space -jar space my jar file. Then what will happen? Inside the container, my application code is going to execute. So we need to we need to tell to Docker how to run our application, because Java application will execute in one format. Python application execution will be in the one format. Angular application execution will be another format. So how to run your application when the container is creating? So for that, we are going to use CMD. CMD is used to execute instructions while creating Docker container. So here guys, for the multiple run instructions you can write, they will execute from top to bottom. If you write, if you write, if we write multiple CMD instructions, Docker will process only last CMD instruction. So there is no use of writing multiple CMD instructions in the Docker file. Always Docker will check for only one CMD. If you have multiple CMDs in your Docker file, it will pick up last CMD and it is going to execute that. So run is used to execute the instruction while creating the Docker image. CMD is used to execute the instruction while creating the Docker container. So what kind of operation we will do by using run keyword? Cloning the repository, maven package, such kind of things we will do by using run, because image creation, right? When the image is creating, code should be available. So if you want to download the code, if you want to package the code while creating the image, go for run. Once image created, I will run the image. Container will create. What we need to do in the container? Run the application. So any command that you want to execute to run your application, you can do it by using CMD instruction. If I have multiple run instructions, then what will happen? All will execute from top to bottom. If I have multiple CMD instructions, then what will happen? Only last CMD instruction it is going to execute. You see this one? Yeah. So here my Docker file is available, guys. Here my Docker file. So by using keywords, we are going to write Docker file in our project. Once Docker file is available, using this Docker file, I want to create my Docker image. This is called building the image. This phase is called image creation. This phase is called image creation. When you are building the Docker image, you want to execute some commands. Then what keyword we can use for that? Run keyword you can use for that. So what that run keyword is going to do? Whatever the command you want to execute, that command will be executed when the image creation is happening. So what are the use cases for the run keyword? Git cloning, maven packaging, such kind of things we are going to do. Now, so git clone successful, maven package is successful, jar created and var is created. Now I want to copy the code. Copy keyword will be available. Now my image is ready. By using this image, I want to go for Docker container. I want to create a Docker container. So this phase is called run phase. Build phase will be available and run phase will be available. So first Docker file is available. Using this Docker file, I am going to create a Docker image. Using this Docker image, I will run the Docker container. When you are running the Docker container, if you want to execute some commands, then what keyword we will use? CMD. Run is used to execute the instruction. CMD also used to execute the instruction. But what is the difference? Run will execute when the image is creating. CMD will execute when the container is creating. Okay. So in general, to run the application, CMD we are going to use. CMD we are going to use to run our jar file or any Python application you want to execute. By using CMD, we will execute that in the container. Are you clear? But now the problem is, if you write multiple CMDs, what will happen? what will happen? Last one is going to execute. Last one is going to execute. Okay. Here guys, another problem is available. When you write the CMD instruction, when the container is creating, people can override the CMD. So we will pass command line arguments in the Java main method, right? When you're running a Java program, you can pass command line argument. So like that, people can pass CMD instruction as a command line argument to the container. So then our instruction will override. Priority will be given to the runtime CMD instruction. People can override our CMD instruction. So that's why instead of the CMD instruction, we are going to use one more instruction called entry point instruction. So it is just an alternate for the CMD. Okay. CMD we can write it. But what is the problem with the CMD? People can override that. When they are running the Docker image, they can override the CMD instruction. If you don't want to override that one, instead of CMD, you go for entry point. Entry point also will execute whenever container is creating. So whenever container is creating, entry point will execute. Now, my application execution I will do by using entry point instead of CMD. Are you able to follow? What is run? What is run? To execute any instruction when the image is getting created. What is entry point? To execute the instruction when the container is creating. You can use either CMD or you can use entry point also. Are you guys clear with this one? Perfect. Next one, there is a keyword called expose keyword is available. In the Docker file, there is a keyword called expose keyword is available. Guys, this keyword is not mandatory. Expose keyword is not mandatory. It is used to specify, it is used to specify container port number. It is used to specify container port number. So here, if your container is running on the port number 8080, in the Docker file, I will specify this as a 8080. So this is just for documentation purpose. Sir, if I change from 8080 to 8081, container will run on the 8081? No. Container port is fixed already. Spring Boot will use Tomcat port number 8080. Yesterday, many people asked me, sir, how do we know the container port number? So here, my application is available as a Docker image. My image is available in the Docker Hub. My image available in the Docker Hub. How people will know what is the, as a developer, I know what port number I'm using for my application. What about the DevOps people? How they know that which port number we are using? So we need to give some documentation about the container port number. To give the documentation about the container port number, in our Docker file, we are going to use a keyword called expose keyword. Expose is not to change the container port, guys. It is just to specify what port container is using. When somebody look at our Docker file, okay, container will use 8080. They will understand that. That's it. Suppose instead of 8081, if I change it to 1111 here, container port will be 1111 or container port will be 8080 only. Container port will be 8080 only. Then what is the purpose of this expose? To inform the people. If someone look at the Docker file, if someone using our Docker file to create the Docker image, they should understand it is going to use which port number. Container will be using which port number. It is just for readability, just for documentation purpose. My container port number, we can specify our container port number here by using this expose keyword. Are you guys clear? What is the purpose of expose? What is the purpose of expose? Expose is used to specify container port number, just for documentation purpose. Just for documentation purpose. Okay. Next one, there is a another keyword available which is called work dir. Work dir keyword is available. It is used to change the path. It is used to navigate from one directory to another directory. So I am currently in the directory 1. I want to go to another directory to copy the files or another directory to execute the file. Okay. Then we will use work dir, working directory. To specify our working directory, we are going to use this work dir command. It is used to specify working directory. Basically, it is used for path change. It is used for path change. Okay. Now we are going to specify work dir like this. Go to user app, something like this. So this is the path in the Linux machine. So hey, when you are going for the container, you go to that path to execute the commands. So if you want to change the path, if you want to change the directory, then we are going to use a keyword called work_dir keyword, which is nothing but working directory. Nothing but working directory. Are you clear with this one? Are you guys clear with this one? Yeah. So what are the keywords available now? You read the keywords. You read the keywords. From keyword is available. Maintainer keyword available. Copy keyword. Run keyword. CMD. Expose. Workdir. Entry point. What is from? From is used to specify base image required for our application. From is used to specify base image required for our application. The next one, maintainer keyword is available. Maintainer keyword is available. What is the purpose of the maintainer keyword? It is used to specify author of the Docker file, who created, who modified that file. What is the purpose of copy? It is used to copy the files from host machine to container machine. Source and destination we are going to specify. What is the purpose of run? What is the purpose of run? Execute the instructions while creating the Docker image. How many run instructions we can write in the Docker file? How many run instructions we can write in the Docker file? Multiple instructions we can write in the Docker file. All of them will execute from top to bottom. What is CMD? Execute the instructions while creating the container. If I write multiple CMD, what will happen? Only last instruction it will process. What is the problem with the CMD? Overriding is possible. If you don't want to override your instruction, go for entry point. When the entry point will execute, when the container is creating, then entry point will execute. What is this expose? Your container will be running on which port number? We are going to specify by using expose keyword. Okay. Work dir. What is the purpose of work dir? It is used to specify working directory. I want to change my path. For that, we are going to use workdir command. So if you have knowledge on these keywords, then you can write the Docker file. You can create a Docker image. You can push your Docker image. You can pull and you can create the containers also. I hope you got the clarity. What are the keywords we are going to use in the Docker file? So can you tell me what is a Docker file? What is a Docker file? Docker file contains some instructions to build Docker image. Okay. We will specify application dependencies in Docker file. Okay. Guys, the naming convention for file. The naming convention for the file. we are going to write like this. No extension. File name will be Docker file. Extension will not be available for the file. Sir, is it mandatory to use the same name? No, it is recommended to use that name. You can use any other name also for the Docker file. Suppose in my project, if I write the file as a test.txt, people will understand that? No. If I write the file name like this, then what is the understanding? Oh, this is a Docker. That readability will be available. So that's why in the project, when we are writing the Docker file, people will use this naming convention. File name will be Docker file, but no extension for that file. Are you clear? Very good. You can change the file name also, but it is not recommended. You can change the file name, but not recommended. Cool. Now, can we write one sample Docker file and can we create a image from that file now? Good. Go to our machine. Yeah, it got hanged. Duplicate. Whenever it is not responding, just right click, duplicate tab. It will open the new session, guys. Duplicate session it is going to open. Okay. ls-l. Currently, any content available now? In my system, there is no content available. Docker images. Any image available in my file in my system? No image is available. Now I will write one Docker sample Docker file. I'm not writing for any project. A sample Docker file I will write and I will show you how to create an image by using that file. Okay. So to create a file in the Linux, we will use a command called vi command. Vi is a visual editor. It will create a file with a name called Docker file and it will open that file. Okay, vi Docker file name. Before creating this file, I'm showing you Docker images. Any images available in the system? No. Any files available in the system? ls is used to list the files in the present working directory. Any files available? Files are not available. I want to create a file. Okay. There are multiple ways to create the files in the Linux by using touch command, by using cat command, by using vi command. You can create the files in the Linux machine. I'm going to use vi command, visual editor, vi docker file, vi docker file, open. My file is open. Then press I in the keyboard. Then you will go to insert mode to edit that file content. Okay. So vi file name. It will create the file and open the file. If you want to write something, you should go to insert mode. Press I for that. In the keyboard, if you press I, it will go to insert mode. So in the Docker file, what is the first thing we are going to specify? From. We are going to specify from. I want one Linux machine with Ubuntu OS. I want to specify Linux. I want a Linux OS as a base image to run my application. Then I'm going to specify maintainer. Maintainer. I'm going to give my name here. That's it. Maintainer name I am going to give. Next one, I'm going to use run keyword. I'm going to use run keyword. So here I'm going to specify echo hello, something like this. Echo is used to print the message, guys. Echo hello. So echo run message 1, then run echo run message 2. So two messages will be printed by using run instruction. Two messages will be printed by using run instruction. Okay. Then I'm going to write one CMD instruction also. Inside the CMD also I'm going to specify echo CMD message 1 and I will specify another CMD echo CMD message 2. Okay, two run messages I'm printing, two CMD messages I'm printing. In the Java we will use system.out.println to print a message. In the Linux, echo is used to print a message. Okay. So from keyword, I'm using and I'm specifying Ubuntu. Maintainer, my name I'm specifying. To run instructions, I'm specifying. To CMD instructions, I am specifying. This is my Docker file. This is my Docker file. So save this file. To save this file, escape, press escape in the keyboard, :WQ, write and quit. So whatever the changes I have done, whatever the lines I added, you save those changes and close that file. So once you press VI, file will open. Press I, go to insert mode, write the commands, then press escape, then :WQ. Then that file will be saved and file will be closed. File got closed. To see the content of the file, cat docker file. That file content it is printing. Cat command is used to print the content from top to bottom. My file is available, which is having docker keywords. Docker file is ready. Once the docker file is ready, now you can see ls-l. Last time when I execute this command, there was no data. Now docker file is created. Now docker file is created. Once the docker file is available like this, you can create docker image for the file. You can create docker image by using the docker file. To create a docker image, you will use a command called docker build command. As I told you, build process will be available. So build process will be available. So my docker file is ready. Now I want to create a docker image. For that, what is the command we are going to use? Build command. Now let's come to that build command. Docker build -t. So what is the tag name you want to give for the image? Okay, I'm giving my tag name as app1. I'm giving my tag name as a app1, then specify dot. That's it. This is the command which is used to create docker image by using docker file. What is the command? Docker build -t image name space dot. Dot means current working directory. It will search for the docker file in the current working directory. Where my docker file is available? In the current working directory. I'm telling to docker to create an image by finding docker file in the current working directory. If you don't give the dot, it don't know where is the docker file is available. Without a docker file, docker image cannot be created. Docker build -t image name space dot. So when you do like this, if your docker file is correct, if the docker file syntaxes are correct, then docker image will be created. If your syntaxes are incorrect, exception will come. Are you getting my point? Yes. What is the command to create a docker image? Docker build -t image name space dot. So what is the meaning of -t? T means a tag. T means tag. So that means we are creating an image and we are assigning a name for the image. Assigning the name to the image is called tagging the image. We are tagging that image. Space dot. Dot means present working directory. It will search for the docker file in the current working directory. Is this clear? Good. Execute. It is failed. It is failed. Why it is failing? Where it is getting failed? Run instruction is failing. Run echo message 1 not found. Failed to process, did not complete successfully. So there is a mistake in the docker file. That's why that is getting failed. Now I want to edit that file. Go here, vi docker file. Again, I want to modify that file. There is some mistake in the file. Vi docker file. File is open. File is open. Then let me go to insert mode. Press I. Press I to edit that file again. Run keyword is available. run echo. Oh, what we need to do here? Just we need to write echo message 1. No, let's try this. Yeah. So I have changed it, guys. Save this file. Yeah. What is the command to build the image? Docker build -t image name space dot. Okay. Now we are able to finish the image creation successfully. We are able to finish the image creation successfully. So here just our image created. Just our image created. You see what happened? Run message 1 is printed. Run message 2 also printed. What about the CMD messages? In my file, what is the content available? You see the file now. Cat RVI Docker file. Total how many messages available? 4 messages available. 2 messages are related to run keyword. 2 messages are related to CMD keyword. Let me take this one. This is our sample Docker file from Ubuntu maintainer run keyword. So by using run keyword, I'm running echo command in the Linux. What is the purpose of echo in the Linux? Print a message. 2 messages should be printed by using run. 2 messages should be printed by using CMD. Okay, this is our file, guys. Let me close this file and let me create the Docker image. What is the command to create the Docker image? Docker build -t space image name. You can give any name for the image space dot. Now enter. It created the image. 4 messages are printing or only 2 messages are printing. Why only 2 messages are printing? Container creation means CMD will execute. Image creation means run will execute. So what we have done now, just image is created. So when your image is creating, run instructions are going to execute. When the container is creating, CMD instructions will be executed. There are 2 run instructions available, both are executed. There are 2 run instructions available, both are executed. Now, can we see our image is created successfully or not? Can we see our image created successfully or not? What is the command to check the images? Docker images. Can you see that? Our image is available now. App1 is our image. It is available. So app1 is the image name which is available. It is created 2 minutes ago. This is the name of the image and this is the ID of the image. Are you clear? So you understand how to write a Docker file and how to create a Docker image? Yes. So what is the name I am giving for this file, guys? Docker file I'm giving. So what is the command I am using to build the Docker image now? Docker build -t then image name space dot. That's it. Okay, this is my Docker file. Once this Docker file is available, you can create a Docker image by using this command. You can create a Docker image by using this command. Once the image is created, we can run the image. When you run the image, container will be created. When the container is created, CMD execution will happen. Can we check the CMD executing or not? Yes, clear this one. Docker images. My app1 image is available. Then Docker run app1. What happened? CMD message is executed. When the run is executing, when the run is executing, when the image is created, when the CMD is executing, container is created. So for run, 2 messages are printed. But for CMD, only second message is printed. So what is the meaning of that? If you write multiple CMD instructions also, Docker will process only last CMD instruction. Are you able to follow this? Good. So any confusion now? So very important topic. How to write a Docker file, how to create a Docker image by using that Docker file. Container creation we learned yesterday itself. How to run the image. Today main task, how to write that file, what are the keywords available to write that file, and how to create an image by using that file. Are you able to follow this? Any confusion? No. Can we create one more Docker file and can we see that? Yes. ls-l, there is already one Docker file is available. Can I remove that file now? Or else you can change, you can give another name for the file also. Let me give another name. So vi space Ashok IT Docker file, something like this. I'm giving the file name as Ashok IT Docker file, no extension. Open this. Insert mode. How to go to insert mode? I'm pressing I. Then first one, from what is the base image? Okay, the base image I want as Ubuntu. Base image I want as Ubuntu. Then just I will write maintainer is not optional. If you want to specify, okay, not required also. Run. I want to run echo. Okay, run message 1. That's it. Then I will go for CMD echo CMD message 1. That's it. Okay, fine. So save this colon WQ. I have here another file now. How many images available? You can check it. There is only one image available with a name called app1. Now, so what is the name we have for our new Docker file? Ashok IT Docker file is available. So by using this file, I want to create the Docker image now. So what is the command? What is the command? Docker build -t image name app2. When you change the file name, -f your file name. When you change the file name, you need to give -f space your file name. If you are following the naming convention, you no need to specify the file name in the command. Okay. Now, Docker build -t app2 is my image tag name. -f represents my Docker file name. Docker build dot. Yeah. Now, so when I use dot, it is checking the current working directory and it is going to build my Docker image. When I build this Docker image, which instruction is executed? I have run plus CMD. Which one is executed? Only run is executed. Why only run is executed? Why only run? Run will execute when the image is getting created. Now, can we check the images created? What is the command to check images created? Docker images, app1 and app2. I want to run the app2 image now. How to run the app2 image now? Come on. Docker run app2. Then CMD message is executed. Okay. So I have started the containers. Those are standalone containers. This is a normal message printing. Once the message printed, container is stopped. Once the message printed, container stopped. Can we see what are the containers available now? How to check that? Docker PS. What? We are not getting anything. What is the meaning of that? All are not run. No container is in the running state. How to see the stopped containers? Docker PS hyphen A. Docker PS means display running containers. Docker PS hyphen A means display stopped containers also. I have started 2 containers. I got the output from them and they got stopped. Are you clear with this one? Now, the next question, how to push our Docker image to Docker Hub account? How to push our Docker image into Docker Hub account? Good. So, see this. Let me delete everything, guys. Docker system prune hyphen A. So what is the meaning of this one? Unused images, stopped containers will be deleted. Clear this one. Docker images. No image is available. ls-l, there are two files available. Let me remove this file. Now I am having only one file called Docker file. Now I want to build a Docker image and I want to push my image into Docker registry so that people can pull my image and they can run my image. Able to follow this? Yeah. Before that, let us check it. What are the images available in my Docker Hub? Okay. Yeah. What is my last image? When I pushed my last image 2 months ago, which is a Maven web application. Maven web application I pushed 2 months ago. Okay. Now I want to create one new image and I want to push that image into my Docker Hub account. First step. Check it, Docker file is available or not. Available. Check any image available or not. Docker images. Any image available now? Image is not available. Now we need to create a Docker image. We need to create a Docker image. And remember, when you are pushing Docker image to the Docker Hub, your image tag name should represent your Docker Hub account username also. So if you see in my Docker Hub account, every image is starting with Ashok IT slash. Here Ashok IT is my Docker Hub account username. So I will use Ashok IT as my username. When you are pushing, you use your username for the tagging. Okay. So see the command now. Docker build hyphen T, Ashok IT is my username slash image name. What is the image name you want to specify? App 201, something like that. Some dummy name I am giving. App 201 space dot. So what is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of this Docker build hyphen T image name space dot? Why I am giving Ashok IT slash? My username to push into my Docker Hub account. Without this username, you can't push that one. So Docker build hyphen T tag name contains my username. Yes, it is building Docker image for my application with a name Ashok IT slash app 201. That is my image name. So with this, my Docker image is created. Run messages also executed. Image created, run messages also executed. Now clear. Check the images, Docker images. So can you see my image is created? Yes, my image is created. Image name is available. Image ID is also available. Now I want to push my image into Docker Hub account. To push image into Docker Hub account, we need to establish the link between our Docker machine and Docker Hub account. For that, we are going to use a command called Docker login. If you log in into your account, then you can push images to your account. Because in the Docker Hub, many user accounts are available. So where you want to store your images? In our account. So you need to log in into your Docker Hub account in order to push your image. So to log in into Docker Hub account, we will use a command called Docker login command. Docker login command. It is asking my username. Okay, Ashok IT is my username. It is asking my password. You type it. It won't display here security wise. I'm typing my password. Username incorrect, username and password. If credentials are wrong, we are getting this message. Let me log in again. Docker login. It is asking my username and I'm giving my password. So with this login success. So once the login is a success, Now you can push your images to the Docker Hub. So what is the command we are using to log in into our Docker Hub account? Docker login command, username and password. When you are entering the password, you should be very careful because it won't display what you are entering there, security reason. Okay. So once you are able to log in into Docker Hub, again, if you check Docker login, is it asking credentials once again? No, it is storing our credentials in the credential store. Here my credentials will be stored. In this location, credentials will be stored. Every day you no need to log into your Docker Hub account. It is asking only for first time. When you do the Docker login second time, it is authenticating my existing credentials which are stored in the system. Once Docker login is a success, Docker push our image name. What is our image name? App 201. So Docker pull is used to download the image. Docker push is used to store the image in the Docker Hub. Are you guys clear? Any confusion? Any confusion? Docker push image name. Okay. Then enter. If you want to do this push, first you need to log in. Then only the push is successful. Otherwise, push operation will be failed. So it is pushing Docker image to Docker Hub. Push operation successful. Now my image is stored into Docker Hub. Go to Docker Hub account and refresh. Now can you see? Just less than a minute ago, my Docker image is stored into Docker Hub account. So what are the commands we used? First, we created a Docker image by giving the tag name. Then I logged in into my Docker Hub account using Docker login command. Then I executed Docker push command to push Docker image into my Docker Hub account. Now, if you go to this image, anybody can pull this image by using this command. Docker pull Ashok IT / app 201. You can pull my image and you can run in your system. This is a public image. Anybody can pull and they can run my image in your system. Are you able to understand? So is it difficult creating the image and pushing the image? It's not difficult. Just Docker file, if you know, then the remaining process is very simple. The only thing is how to write the Docker files. So nowadays, developers only writing the Docker files in the market. So earlier, DevOps people used to write the Docker files, but now developers only writing the Docker files in the market. So you should know how to write that Docker file. Are you able to follow this? Good. So what are the commands that we have executed, guys? First one. What is the first command we executed? Docker build -t image name space dot. For the image name, you give your username / image name. Then next one, Docker images. What is the purpose of Docker images? To see what are the images available. Then next one, we are going to use Docker login. So you log in into your Docker Hub account by using your username and password. Then we can go for Docker push image name. Whatever the image name you are giving, same name you need to give here. Then image will be pushed into your Docker Hub account. Okay, fine. So with this, we understood what is Docker file, how to write that Docker file, how to create a Docker image by using that Docker file, how to push our image into Docker Hub account by using push command. Pull and push. Pull is used to download the image. Push is used to upload the image. Okay, good. And whenever we are uploading the images, guys, for example, my application code available. Today I created one image with the name. Tomorrow some changes will come. Then I will recreate the image. In the real time, whenever the code is modified, every time new image should be created. Whenever we are creating the images, we will give tag name also for the image, because this month we are delivering our application 201 to the client. So for this one, I will give in the image name, I will give like this, Ashok IT slash app 201 colon V1. What is the meaning of colon V1? First verse. Suppose if I recreate the image and if I repush my image, what will happen? Overriding will happen. I am going to recreate my, whenever code change is happening, we will recreate the image and we will repush the image. When I repush my image, what will happen? Overriding. But I don't want to override my image. I don't want to override my image. I want to maintain the previous images and I want to maintain the new images also. Then you will go for tags. Then you will go for a concept called tags concept will be available. How do we give the tag concept for the image? So whenever you are storing a image, we will give this one as a V1, first version of the image. Second time, when you are going to push, if you give V2. So this image having two tags, V1 old code available, V2 latest code is available. Suppose when people are pushing latest image, we can specify like this also. Ashok IT slash app 201 colon latest. So this is my latest image available in the Docker Hub. Then when people are pulling, if you do pull like this, Docker pull Ashok IT slash app 201, which image, there are three images available with the same name. But how can these images are differentiated? With the tag name. V1, V2, latest is available. So when you are pulling the image name like this, by default, you will get the latest image. If you want to pull the old image, you need to specify the version. That is V1 you can specify. So like this, when you are pushing same image multiple times to the Docker Hub, the tag name should be different. Basically, image name is same, but in that multiple tags are required. V1 image, V2 version 1, version 2, version 3, or release 1 image, release 2 image, like that. You can give the tag names separately, differently, so that always latest image people are going to pull. Suppose when I am pushing, I'm not giving any tag name, then by default will take it as a latest. If you don't specify the tag name for the image with the colon, then it will consider that as a latest image. Are you guys clear? Good. Perfect. Yes. Next one, the real Dockerization. The real Dockerization. That means we need to take one application. For that application, we need to write the Docker file and we need to execute that application. Now, before going to write any Docker file, you need to understand the project execution process. If you want to write a Docker file for any project, you need to understand project execution process. Are you clear? Now, in the Java, we can develop application in two ways, guys. In the Java, if you take Java application, you can take Java application in two ways. So this is my source code. This is my source code. This source code will be compiled. Then dot class files will be available. These dot class files we are going to package. Then war file will be created. That war file we are going to deploy inside Tomcat. Okay. This is the process when you are not using Spring Boot. Suppose your advanced Java classes you attended, servlet projects are there. So when you go for normal Java project, so here my source code is available. Here my source code is available. Here my bytecode is available. I compiled that project. Bytecode is generated. That means the dot class files are available. All the dot class files I packaged as a war file. That war file I'm going to deploy in the Tomcat server. We need to set up this Tomcat server and we are going to deploy this war file in the Tomcat. Then our application will be running in the Tomcat server. This is the flow of our Java web application execution when the Spring Boot is not available. Are you able to follow this? So source code will be available. That source code you need to compile. That means you need to execute compilation. Maven compile goal you need to execute. Then it is going to create the bytecode. Once the bytecode is available, you need to package that code. Then war file will be created. Then you copy this war file to Tomcat server. So this is the execution flow when you are developing normal Java web application. Are you clear? Similarly, if I am developing Java application by using Spring Boot, when I develop Java application by using Spring Boot, process is same or process is different? Different. Here the process source code for Spring Boot application also source code, bytecode, package is common. But Spring Boot applications will be packaged as a jar file. Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar file, not war file, because Spring Boot application will execute from the main method. They will execute from main method. Once the jar is available, copy that jar file to some path and run the jar file. That's it. For the Java web application, we need to copy the war file to Tomcat server. But for the Spring Boot application, Tomcat server required or not required? Not required. Jar is available. You just run the jar file. When you run the jar file, Tomcat will start automatically. That is a embedded container concept. You should have this knowledge to write the Docker file. So now, do you think that DevOps people will have this knowledge on the application execution process? It is difficult for them because they are not from the programming background. That is the reason companies are expecting developers only to write the Docker file, because every Java developer knows how Java web application will execute, how Spring Boot application will execute. Suppose if you take a DevOps engineer, they don't know the difference between jar and var also. As a Java developer, we know what is a jar file and what is var file. How to run the var file, how to run the jar file, we know that. But what about the DevOps team? They know what is a jar, what is var, what is embedded Tomcat server, what is Spring Boot. No. So you understand. So if the DevOps people want to write the Docker file, what they need to do? First, they need to understand how Java project will execute, how Python project will execute, how Angular project will execute, how React project will execute. And let me tell you the real time. In the real time, development team will be dedicated to one project. So a project will have a dedicated development team, dedicated testing team will be available. But project will never have dedicated DevOps team. One DevOps team will manage multiple projects in the company. So DevOps team operations means what? They need to set up the infrastructure. They need to build and deploy the application. Now, DevOps team is managing 10 projects in the company. 10 projects are developed using 10 different technologies. One project is with Spring Boot, another project with Angular, another project with .NET, Python, React.js, PHP. So can they understand how all these projects are going to execute? It is difficult for them. Again, we need to conduct a separate class for them. We need to call the DevOps people for the class, and we need to explain Java project will execute like this. The Spring Boot project will execute like this. Python project will execute like this. Node.js project will execute like this. If they understand this execution process, then only they can write the Docker files. Otherwise, they cannot write the Docker file, because what is Docker file? Which is used to create the image, which is used to create the container. When the container is creating, application should be executed. How the application should be executed? By using CMD or by using entry point. As a developer, I know for web application, you no need to do anything. Just to copy the war file to Tomcat, deployment will be completed. If it is a Spring Boot application, just to copy the jar file and run the jar file, boot application will start. So who is good to write the Docker files now? Developers are good. Why? We know our project execution process. We know our project execution process. So that's why we can write better Docker files than the DevOps people because we know the process. DevOps engineer means if they learn about Spring Boot execution today, tomorrow they got another project with Python requirement. Again, they need to learn how Python project is going to execute. But if you ask a Python developer, easily they can tell how the Python project is going to execute. This is the reason in the companies, they are expecting developers should know the Docker. So nowadays, developers only writing the Docker files in the project. In our project, as a developer, we will write the Docker file and we will only deploy the application. For my project, in my company, the scenario is very different. So it is product-based company. There is no DevOps team separately. So developers are responsible for everything. As a developer, we should create the infrastructure in the AWS by using Terraform. We should write that coding. We should create the Docker file. We should create the Docker images. We need to set up Kubernetes cluster. We need to set up a Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. We should only deploy that code. So independent developers, everybody is responsible for their own task. So there is no DevOps team who is going to take care of all these things. So we will take care of development plus operations also. That is for non-prod. For the production, separated senior DevOps team will be available for the live deployment. For dev deployment, sit deployment, for UAT, we are only taking care of that. So non-prod team is available, prod team is available. Non-prod team will be non-prod environments, production environment. Non-prod means local. In our company only we will access. If we do some mistake also, no problem. But in the prod, mistake should not happen. So that's why for the production deployment, release team will be available. A dedicated team will be available to release the application to the production. So slowly the trend started in the market. Non-prod environments, developers only should manage. Only prod environment, release team will manage. 3 years back, complete non-prod and prod, everything managed by DevOps team. Now, non-prod developers, only prod DevOps team. So that's why you should know these are DevOps operations. Are you clear? Now, you see Java application execution process. In the Java, you can develop a normal web application without Spring Boot, and you can develop a web application with a Spring Boot. What is the difference? jar file and war file. Normal web application will be packaged as a war file. So Spring Boot application will be packaged as a jar file. How to run the war file? By copying into the Tomcat. Are you going to run the war, or you will just copy the war into Tomcat? We will just copy the war into Tomcat. What about the jar? We will run the jar file. When you run the jar, what will happen? Container is going to start. Tomcat server is going to start as an embedded server to run the application. Are you guys clear? Any confusion? So if you have this knowledge, about execution process of the application, then we can write the Docker file for these applications. Okay, so let us see. Docker file for Java web application. Okay, no Spring Boot, guys. So when I'm writing this Docker file, there is no Spring Boot for this Docker file. Good. So tell me, what is the command? Docker file will start with which command? From. I'm going to specify base image. What is the base image? Open JDK colon 11. What is Open JDK? That is a base image. I want Java as a base image to run my application. Only Java or Tomcat also? Only Java or Tomcat also? Tomcat also, because what kind of application we are dockerizing now? Java web application which does not contain the Spring Boot. When you have Java application without Spring Boot, instead of Java, directly I will specify base image as a Tomcat. Directly I will specify base image as a Tomcat. When I specify base image as a Tomcat with JRE colon 9.5. Then it is going to download Tomcat server. Tomcat is developed by using Java. To run the Tomcat, Java is required. Now Docker will install the Java, then it will install the Tomcat. Direct official image is available when you go for the Tomcat. Okay, when you use the Tomcat, Java plus Tomcat will be installed in our container system, in the container. Got it? So then once we specify the base image, then I'm going to give maintainer name who is developing this Docker file. Okay, next I want to run the war file. I want to run the war file. Where the war file will be available? In the host machine. Where you want to run the war file? Container. I want to copy my war file from the host machine to container machine. What is the command? Copy. Let us go for a command called copy. War file will be available in which location? Target. App.war. Where it should be copied? Into the Tomcat server. Am I installing the Tomcat? My Docker is installing the Tomcat. Docker is installing the Tomcat. So because we are specifying Tomcat as a base image, when you specify like this, Tomcat will be installed by default in this location. In this location. That's it. So this is fixed path in the container machine, guys. Okay. So if you have some knowledge on the Linux, then you will understand what is this path. In my host machine, war file will be available in the target folder. I want to copy the war file from my host machine to Tomcat web apps folder. What is the web apps folder? Deployment folder. Where that Tomcat available? Container machine. This is the container machine path of the Tomcat web apps folder. So this war file will be copied to the container machine Tomcat server web apps folder, which is called as a deployment folder in the Tomcat. So this is called deployment folder in the Tomcat. Are you guys clear with this one? So you got the clarity? How we are doing the copy? Yes. So once copy is done, deployment is completed. Do I need to do anything for the deployment? When I go for a normal web application, do I need to do anything for the deployment? Not required. And I'm going to specify expose 8080. What is the default port number of the Tomcat? What is the default port number of the Tomcat? The default port number of the Tomcat is 8080. So if you write this Docker file, then you can Dockerize Java web application. This is the Docker file for the Java web application. That's it. So this Docker file we will keep in our project and we will create an image and we will run the image. Then our application will execute in the Docker container. Look at that. I'm using just 4 keywords. In these 4 keywords, these 2 are mandatory or optional. Remove them. This is the Docker file. You can specify that. So here we are going to specify JRE 1.8, something like that. So there is an image. If you want Java 11 version, that image you have to specify. Java 17, that image you have to specify. It is going to download the latest version. You have to give the version name for that. Yeah. So see, I'm giving this is not correct base image, guys. Just I'm giving for idea. Base image name will be different. We will find out in the Docker Hub. So this is sample. You need to give the image name like this. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this from keyword? What is the purpose of this from keyword? To specify base image required for our application. What is the purpose of this maintainer keyword? Which is used to specify author. What is the purpose of this expose keyword? Container will be running on which port number? If I keep here 8082, does it mean that container will run on 8082? No. Tomcat default port number 8080. Why I am keeping this expose 8080 here? Container is running on the which port number. We are giving information to others. Who is going to read my Docker file? They will understand. My container is running on 8080. How the application deployment is happening? We are just copying the war file from the target folder to that Tomcat server web apps folder. This process will work for the Java application when there is no Spring Boot. Will this work for the Spring Boot application? No. Why it will not work for the Spring Boot? In the Spring Boot, war file will not be available. Jar file will be there. We need to run the jar file in the Spring Boot. Are you able to follow this? Now, can we write Docker file for Spring Boot application? Can we write the Docker file for Spring Boot application? Yes. Docker file for Spring Boot app. When you go for Docker file for the Spring Boot application, first of all, do you understand this one? Any confusion? What is the from? Base image. What is the base image for our application? Tomcat. What about Java? Tomcat will download the Java also. Okay. Maintainer means author. Expose means giving the information about the port number. This is the important command. Copy. What is that copy? Copy the war file from our host machine to container machine. What is container? Linux machine. In that container, who is installing Tomcat? Developer or Docker? Docker will install. Why Docker will install the Tomcat? I gave that as a base image. So Tomcat will be installed in the container machine. We know that Tomcat is developed by using Java. To run the Tomcat server, Java should be installed. So there is a image which will give Tomcat plus Java. That we are going to give as a base image. That image represents a Tomcat plus Java. Java will be installed. Tomcat will be installed. Tomcat path will be available like this. We need to go to that path and paste our file. So we are manually pasting the file, or copy command will do that. From the host machine, take the war file and paste into Tomcat web apps. That is called a deployment. What is the meaning of web application deployment? Keep the war file in the Tomcat server web apps folder is called deployment. If I go for Python, same file will be available. If I go for Python project, file will be same or not? Python project execution flow is different. So according to the Python execution flow, Docker file will be available. If I go for Angular application, same flow. For Angular, flow will be same or not? No. Angular project execution process will be different. Okay. Now let us write Docker file for Spring Boot application. When we are writing Docker file for the Spring Boot application, what is execution process of the Spring Boot? What is the execution process of the Spring Boot? Jar file will be available. Copy the jar file, run the jar file. When we should run the jar file? When the container is creating. So can we execute a command when the container is creating? How to execute a command when the container is creating? CMD or entry point? Which one is recommended? Entry point is recommended. Okay, now go here. I'm going to, for Spring Boot. Do I need any Tomcat separately? Why? Why I don't need Tomcat separately? Embedded server. So for the Spring Boot, we will specify only Java. Only Java is sufficient for my Spring Boot. Next one, guys. See here, I'm going to write copy. What is the copy? What is the copy? Spring Boot application jar file is available. Copy user app. That's it. So what is the meaning of that? Install Java 11 version in the container system. Then copy Spring Boot jar file into container machine path. You can give any path now. User/app. Now once this command is executed, where our jar file will be available? User app. Now I will give workdir/user/app. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? My jar file is copying from the host machine to container machine. Now I will go to that container path. Then I will execute my jar file. I just need to execute my jar file. To execute the jar file, I will use entry point. Here I am going to specify Java, comma, -jar, comma. What is our jar file name? sbapp.jar. Okay. Now you can specify here expose. What is the default port number? Spring Boot also will be using 88. That's it. This is the Docker file for Spring Boot application. This is the Docker file for the Spring Boot application. What I am doing in this Docker file, I am keeping base image as a JDK 11. Then I am copying my jar file from the target to container path. Then I am going to the container location by using which command? Work dir. So then once I go to that location, then entry point. So Java space hyphen jar space jar file name. When this entry point will execute? When the container is creating. When the container is creating, my entry point is going to execute. Jar file will be executed. When the jar file is executed, what will happen? Application is going to start. Yeah. You compare these two files, guys. Docker file for Java web application, Docker file for Spring Boot application. What is the difference? So what knowledge is required to write these Docker files? Execution flow. Based on the execution flow, files we are going to write. For Java web application, war file will be copied to the Tomcat. For the Spring Boot application, jar file will be executed. Look at that. In there, okay? Huh? By default, Linux. Whenever you specify Tomcat or Java, any base image you specify, by default, it will take Linux as a operating system. Ubuntu Linux, it is going to take. Look at this, guys. Look at the Docker file. Online students, able to follow me? Yeah, this path slash user, something like this will be available. This is the path. Are you able to understand how to write the Docker file for the Java web application as well as for the Spring Boot application? If you go for Python, file will be different. Python execution flow will be different. If I go for Angular, React, .NET, every language having their own execution process. According to that, we need to write the Docker files. Okay. So in the team, DevOps team, they will be handling multiple projects parallelly, right? Different technology projects. So for them, it's difficult to understand the execution process of all these applications. That's why developers only writing Docker files nowadays. Look at them. If you are not understanding any keyword, let me know. Are you clear with the keywords? From, maintainer, copy, run, CMD, entry point, expose, work dir, these keywords. What is the purpose of work dir? Changing the path. From one path to another path I want to navigate. For that I am going to use work dir. Is this clear? Perfect. Okay. Now what I will do is I will download my project from the GitHub repository. Spring Boot project is available. In that project, a Docker file also available. Just I will package my project by using Maven. Then I will build a Docker image. Then I will push Docker image and I will run my Docker image. One practical we are going to do now. So here in this GitHub repository, guys, Ashok IT GitHub repository available. In this GitHub repository, you can search for Spring Boot with Docker. Okay. Docker. What is this one? Spring Boot Docker application, Python Docker application, React Docker application, Angular Docker application, .NET Docker applications are available. So in these projects, Docker files are already available. Okay, good. Go to Spring Boot Docker application. So in this Docker application, can you see here, there is a file available with a name called Docker file. So if I open this Docker file, you check it, you are able to understand that file or not. Is there anything different? Is there anything different in this file now? No. So first one is from keyword. Okay. From keyword is available, expose. So from openjdk:11. So this is the Docker file for our Spring Boot application. From openjdk:11. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? Download Java 11 version in the container. Maintainer, our name, copy jar file. Where the jar file will be available? Target. We need to build that by using Maven. Then what I am doing? User app directory. So this is a container machine path. What I am doing now? Change the path. What is this one? Exposing the port number. What is the last one? Entry point. Java jar with the jar file name. Okay. So this is my Docker file for Spring Boot application. Anything difficult here? No. Let me go to one more project here, which is called Maven web app. Okay. This is a normal Java web application without Spring Boot. What is available? Next week we are going to learn Jenkins file. So currently Docker file is available. Click on this Docker file. Now you see anything that you are not able to understand? From Tomcat 8 with JRE 8, Java 1.8 and Tomcat 8, it is going to install as a base image. Maintainer, expose. What is this? Copy the war file from target host machine to container machine Tomcat web apps folder. Then web application will be deployed. Okay. So is it difficult to write the Docker files for Java now? Normal web application jar application Docker file, Spring Boot application Docker file we have already created here. Just I want to show you in the GitHub. I'm going to use those projects to Dockerize now. So look at these files. This base image is correct, but this base image is not correct, guys. So let me take the correct base image. This is the correct base image. Okay. So let me Dockerize one Spring Boot application. Spring Boot 1 or Java? Spring Boot. Dockerizing Spring Boot application. Dockerizing Spring Boot application. Okay. So first one, install Git client in host VM. Git is not available to clone the repository. To install the Git client, guys, we are going to use a command called sudo yum install git. Then install Maven in host VM. Okay. So install Git client in host VM and clone repo. My Git repo is available. How to clone this Git repo? Git clone repo URL. What is my repository URL? I will give you my project code URL. You can use your project also. I have project ready in the Git repository. Docker, if you type Spring Boot Docker app, you will get it. Copy this URL, then just clone this repository URL. Okay, this is my GitHub repository URL. Clone repo URL. Dockerizing Spring Boot application, Git repo. I'm keeping my Git repo URL. Dockerizing Spring Boot application, my GitHub repository URL. Install the Git client and clone the repository. Install Maven in the host VM. To install Maven in the host VM, mvn installation, right? Sudo yum install Maven. Okay. Package the project, go inside the project, go inside project directory and perform Maven build. How to go inside the project directory? cd space directory name. Then we are going to use mvn clean package. We will use mvn clean package. Okay. So once we have done this one, build Docker image. Already Docker file available in the project only, right? Build Docker image. Then run Docker container using Docker image. Okay. Then next one, enable host port. Enable host port in security group. Access application in the browser. Access application in the browser. How do we build a Docker image for the application, guys? What is the command for that? Docker build -t image name Ashok IT / Spring Boot application space dot. Okay. How to run this image now? Docker run -d -p host port container port and image name /sb app. Okay. So this is the process. Dockerizing our Spring Boot application. Whatever we learned yesterday and today by using, we are doing one project now. We are doing one project by using Docker. My code is available in the GitHub repository. In that, Docker file is also available. We know how to write the Docker file. So Docker files also will be part of the Git repository, guys. Every microservice will have its own Docker file. Now we need to install the Git client in our system in the Linux machine which we are using. Install Maven, build a Maven project, then build a Docker image, then create the container, enable the port number in the security group, then access the application. Today, I am doing these 5 steps manually. Installing the Git, download code, build Maven. Next week, Jenkins will do all this work. Complete automation we are going to do. Jenkins plus Docker integration we are going to see. Okay. This week we are learning Docker. We are practicing Docker operations. Next week, Jenkins with Docker integration. If you click a button, Jenkins will download your code. Jenkins will package your code. Jenkins will create a Docker image. Jenkins will create a Docker container also. Everything will be automated. Good. Yeah. Now let us go to our machine. Yeah, it is disconnected. Press R. Okay. What is the first step, guys? What is the first step I need to follow now? Install the Git and clone the repository. Okay. How to install the Git? Sudo yum install Git. It is installing Git. Press yes. Git client is installing in my system. Now, I want to install Maven in my system. How to install? Sudo yum install Maven. Maven will be installed in our Linux is easy, Windows is easy. Linux is easy. So if you start using Linux, then you will feel that benefit. Okay. If you want to install Maven in the Windows, download that, set the path, go to environment variable. Lot of things are required. But in the Linux, just one command, everything will be done. Okay. So in this system, Git is installed, Maven is also installed. Git version is available, MVN version is also available. Okay. So when I install Maven, for Maven, Java is required. Which version of Java downloaded? Java 17 downloaded, Maven is in just with one command, Java installation, Maven installation completed. So people who are working in the real time will love the Linux operating system because it's a beautiful operating system. Everything is command based, CLI based operating system. You are going to learn the Linux in the project. This knowledge is required, guys, because operations will happen in the Linux machines only in the real time. Without having this Linux knowledge, it is difficult to survive in the job. So your operations will be there on Linux in the real time. Windows laptop will be available for coding purpose, but deployment, Linux machine. Okay. So I am able to install Git and I'm able to install my Maven. ls-l Docker file available, remove that. Okay, rm command to remove that file. ls-l, anything is available? Yesterday somebody asking me, sir, how you are remembering all these things? Sir, you are that person asked me, sir, you are teaching Java, Spring Boot, Microservices, DevOps, AWS, Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, Terraform. So how you remember all these things without looking at any material in the class, everything you are explaining and how it is possible? What is my answer? 11 years. 11 years. It's not 1 year or 2 years, man. I worked in the industry. I'm working in the industry from last 11 years. When you do some practicals, right? So when we are working for the company, now I became a tech lead. My work is less in the company. When I was a junior, I used it to work 18 hours per day because I joined in a startup company. Unfortunately, in that company, I am the experienced person as a fake experience. I joined in the company with 3.5 years fake experience. Unfortunately, everybody is a junior in that project. They felt that, oh, हमको team lead मिला है, 3.5 years experience. But I know the reality, I am a fake guy at that time. So to complete my tasks, 8 hours was not sufficient at that time because I don't know anything at that time. In 2013, I got my first job in the 2013. कुछ नहीं आता था. Interview got cleared. I joined. Extra burden. They are feeling that I am team lead. Why? Because my experience is more than their experience. But what is reality? They are better than me. They have 2 years genuine experience. I don't have anything. So to complete my tasks, I used to work 18 hours in a day. 1.5 years, I struggled a lot in the job. After 1.5 years, I switched the company. Then I got some relax. I understood what is real time, how to develop the code. So in that startup company, not only coding, we used to work on the Linux systems for the deployment. In the 2013, there is no AWS cloud that much not famous. DevOps is not that much famous. Everything we used to do manually. So as I have done that for 1.5 years for 18 hours per day, I got that much knowledge. That 1.5 years is a beautiful learning. I have struggled a lot. Every day is a nightmare. Sometimes, some days, I did not get the sleep also. Kal morning manager kya bolte hain? Will they keep me in the job or will they fire me from the job because my performance is not good? I'm not meeting their expectation. Their expectation high level, team lead. But reality, fake. So I struggled a lot in the first job. After 1.5 years, I got full knowledge, because I have done everything on my own. That is a startup company, no official tools, nothing. So coding we have to do, testing we have to do, deployment we have to do, Linux servers we have to create. Everything we have done from the scratch level. So if you do in the scratch project, you will get the technical skills. From then, in that 1.5 years, I learned so many things. Then I joined in the Deloitte company. After 1.5 years in the startup, I joined in the Deloitte, very big MNC company. After going in the Deloitte company, nothing is there. They will give one task. Change one method, 8 hours of time. You just change the method, 8 hours of time. The log message is not coming, 2 days of time. Enjoy. कुछ नहीं होता है. So in the startup company, they will tell develop the project in 1 week. But here in the MNC company, they will do a lot of analysis. One bug is there. If there is a bug, users are not able to log in, there is a issue. 2 days only for analysis, 2 days for the coding, 2 days for the testing. But in the startup, within 10 minutes, fix करना पड़ेगा. So that pressure will be there when you go for startup company. When you go for MNC company, luxury will be there. Now I am working for topmost banking company in the US. Daily 2 to 3 hours, my task will be completed. In the MNC company, that luxury will be there. But in the startup company, pressure will be there. So if you work in the startup, technically you will become very strong. But if you work in the MNC company, kahani banta pada. Kahani you have to prepare I'm working on this one. There is a big issue. Everything is just communication. If I go for meeting, I will speak for 20 minutes, but work, nothing. No need to do anything. If you have good communication, you can easily survive in the MNC companies. So in the MNC company, process. In my company, I got the database access after 45 days. Once I joined in the company, it is a banking company. Once I joined in the company, they have given me code access for 20 days. I raised a request. I want GitHub code access to see what is there. Lot of approvals. After 25 days, I got the GitHub access. 25 days, no work, nothing. Every day meeting, what are you doing? Waiting for access. Okay, you will get it when approval is required. I got data code access for 25 days. Then to run that code, it should connect to the database. I raised a request for database access, 45 days of time to just to get the database access. That is the story in the MNC. In the startup company, day one, this is the project, just complete that. So if you go for the startup company, technically you will become strong. Luckily, my first company is startup. After that, I'm working for the MNC companies. If you go for startup, less salary will be there. MNC company, more luxury, work from home, some benefits will be available. But सीखने के लिए कुछ नहीं मिलता. Hmm. Hmm. Got it. Fine, guys. Now I want to Dockerize my application by using Spring Boot. Okay. So here my GitHub repository is available and I want to clone that repository. I want to build that project by using Maven. Then I need to build the Docker image for the application and I'm going to run that Docker image so that my container will be created. I completed Git installation and Maven installation in the Linux machine. The next step, I need to clone my Git repository, ls-l. Currently, nothing is available. Clone our Git repository. Git URL is available now. This is my repository URL. Just git clone. Go to git clone repository URL. Enter. My project is cloned. From the GitHub, I cloned my project into Linux machine. Okay. So ls-l, yeah, repository is available. That means my project is available. Spring Boot Docker app. Go inside the project to build that project using Maven. CD, change directory. I'm going inside the project directory. Once I go inside the directory, ls-l. Now you see source code is available, pom.xml available, Docker file also available. Target folder is available or not available. I need to build this project by using Maven. Then jar file will be created. How to build this by using Maven? MVN clean package. MVN clean package. Yeah. Maven downloading the libraries and Maven will build the project. Jar file will be created in the target directory. Once the jar is created, now I want to create a Docker image for that. Yeah, build got success. Maven build process completed successfully. Now go to ls-l. Now can you see target directory is created. What is there inside the target? ls-l target. Inside the target, can you see my jar file? Yeah, can you see the jar file inside the target directory? Yes. Whenever you do the Maven build, the project will be compiled and packaged. Jar file is generated in the target. So if you see in the Docker file, what we are giving path of the jar file in the Docker file, what we are giving guys, target/jar file name. So inside the target directory, our project jar file is available. Okay. So we completed Maven package also. What is the next step now? Build a Docker image. For that, a Docker file is required. Where is the Docker file? Where is the Docker file? Inside the application only, man. ls-l. Inside the application only, Docker file is available. Do you want to see content of the Docker file? vi Docker file. Now you see the Docker file content. From keyword, Java 11 I want. Maintainer my name. Copy the jar file from the target location to user app location. User app is a container machine. Work directory, go to the user app, expose, container port is 8080, entry point, run that jar file. Okay, now save this file. Yeah, check the Docker images available. Check the Docker images available. Ashok IT app 201 image available. Now I want to create image for my Spring Boot application. What is the command? Docker build -t image name space dot. What is the meaning of dot? Current working directory. Okay, enter. Image is creating. Yeah. Finally, image created successfully. Let us verify image is available or not. Docker images. Yes. For Spring Boot application, image created. Can we run that image now? Can we run that image now? How to run that image now? Docker run -d -p. What is the host port? You can give anything. Host port can be anything. What is the container port? 8080. What is the image name? SB app. Docker run -d -p 8080:8080 space SB app. Run is used to run the image. When you run the image, what will happen? Container will be created. I want to create the container in the detached mode. For that, I am using -d. What is the meaning of -p? Port mapping. Space image name. Enter. Container created. So once the container is created, I can execute other command because I am using -d. If I don't use -d, I can't execute any command there. Can we check the containers running now? How to check the containers running now? Docker PS. One container is running. From 18 seconds, container is running. What is the port number? 8080. Now I want to access this application in the browser, in my browser. So what we need to do to access application in our browser? We need to enable port number in the security group inbound rules to allow the traffic for this machine. Now go to EC2 machine security group and go to the security group. Yesterday we enabled 9090 for yesterday application. Today we are using 8080. Add the rule, keep it as 8080 anywhere. Any request coming, that should be allowed. So this is the change I am doing in the security group to allow the traffic. Once it is done, save the rules. My security group rules are updated. Once the security group rules updated, go to the machine, take its public IP, colon, what is the host port? 8080. Welcome to Ashok IT software. This is my message I'm getting from my REST API. Online people can hit this URL. Okay. You can also type this URL in your mobile browser. 3.108.219.241:8080. This is IP address of our application, which is running in the Docker container. Container is running in the Linux machine. Linux machine running in the AWS cloud. All right, good. So we are able to access our application in the public users can access our application where it is running inside the Docker container. Now, if the Docker file is available, can you run Python application also? Can we run the Python application also? Yes. So see here, I am having Python Flask application. Okay. If you go to Python project, there is a Docker file available. So see the Docker file for Python application from Python 3.x image, copy, workdir, expose, run, entry point. This is the execution flow for our Python application. So you just need to clone this Python application. Already Docker file available, build a Docker image and run that application. Python port number using, Python application using port number 5000. It is using 5000. Can we run the Python application and can we check it now? Can I run two containers in the same machine? Can I run two containers in the same machine? Yes. Let me take this Python project, copy this one, go to my Linux machine, come out from the Spring Boot application. Okay. CD space dot dot. Now, currently I am in the home directory EC2 user clone, git to clone URL, Python URL. Copy this and clone git URL. Okay, Python project is cloned. Go inside that ls-l cd space Python Docker application. ls-l Docker file is available for the Python. If Docker file is available, what we need to do? Just create the Docker image and run the Docker image. Now clear this. Docker build -t Python app space dot py app. That is a Python application. Based on the Docker file, the Docker image will be created for Python application. Anybody learning Python? You're learning Python? Okay. Flask completed? Flask is a framework, right, to develop APIs. Yeah. So Python Docker image got created, guys. Python Docker image created. Go for Docker images. Py app is available, which is my Python application Docker image. How to run it? Docker run -d -p 5000. Container port is 5000. Host port also I'm giving 5000. Space my image name, which is PyApp. Enter. That's it. Python container, Python application running in the Docker container. So can you go for Docker PS? How many containers available in my machine now? One container is running for Python. One container is running for Spring Boot. One is for Python. One is for Spring Boot. Now I want to access Python application. What is the host port? 5000. Now can I enable 5000 and can I access Python project? Yes. Go here. Go to your EC2 machine, security group, enable 5000 in the inbound rule. Add the rule 5000 and anywhere, any request coming to 5000 host port, allow that request. Okay. So take this machine IP address. Now hit with 5000. What is the URL? What is the response? Welcome to Python Flask application. Okay. Now same URL, if you change port number 5000, Python application will execute. If I give 8080, Spring Boot application will execute. So what is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? In one machine, two containers are running. One container is running with the Spring Boot application. Another container is running with the Python application. You can test it. Same IP, just you change the port number. When you are running multiple containers, every application should have different host port. Containers can use the same port number, no problem. Okay, Python application also can run on 8080. Spring Boot application also can run on 8080 because containers are different, independent containers. Containers are different. Now, let us see the simple understanding here. I am having my Linux machine, guys. So in this Linux machine, this is our host to Linux machine. Inside this Linux machine, I have installed Docker for containerization. So when I install the Docker, I can create the containers. Container 1, container 2, container 3. 3 containers I'm taking on the set. I'm running 3 containers. Java application, Python application, .NET application. Okay. So when I'm running these containers, it is running on port number 8080. Assume that. This container is running on the port number 8080. This container also running on 8080. This also running on 8080. Can containers run with the same port number? Any problem? If 3 containers are using the same port number, is there any problem now? No problem, man. Every container is a different machine, right? So these are 3 different machines. These are 3 different Linux machines. In one machine, one application running with one port number. But if you see, 3 containers are running with 8080. 3 containers are running in the same container itself is a machine. Container itself is a machine. So can I run This is the interview question. Can I run two containers with the same port number in the machine? Yes. How? Because container is a separate machine. There is no problem with the port numbers here. But when you are mapping the port numbers, right? This should be mapped to host machine. This should be mapped to host machine. So here, when I am mapping this -p 9090 colon 8080. 9090 colon 8080. When I am mapping this one, can I map host port to 8080 9090 now? No, I will map it 9091 colon 8080. So what is the meaning of that? In the host machine, port numbers should be unique. First container mapped to 9091, second container mapped to 9090, third container will be mapped to 9093. So like this, host port should be different. Containers can use the same port number. There is no problem. Whenever you are mapping container port to the host port, unique port number you need to give on the host machine. Suppose if I give here 8080 colon 8080, here also if I give 8080, then problem. If problem is because of container port, problem is because of the host port. Host port. Why host port problem? One port number can be used by one process. That's why Spring Boot port I map it to 8080, Python port I map it to 5000. So two different ports are mapped to two different applications. If I am running 10 containers in the machine, host containers can use the same port number. My host machine mapping should be different. That's it. You got the clarity? So we are able to run one Python application also. That Python Git repository I'm giving in the notes. Dockerizing Python application. Dockerizing our Python application. Okay. Yeah. Let's take this Git repository. Copy this one. So steps you can write the steps, right? You need to clone the repository. Then you need to create the Docker image. For Python, compilation is not required. Maven is not required for the Python. It is a scripting language. Directly you can run that code. For Java, compilation is required. For Python, it is not required. So for Python application, what you need to do now? What is the first command you need to do? Git to clone repo. Then cd space project name. Then what is the next command? I cloned my repository. I'm in the repository. Then directly docker build -t python app. Then next one docker images. Then next one docker run -d -p 5000 colon 5000 space py app. That is our image name. Enable 5000 in the security group. Then you can access your Python application also. We are running Spring Boot application by using Docker and Python application also by using Docker. Got it? Good. One small topic is pending, guys, that we will discuss in the tomorrow session. That is Docker Compose. Docker Compose topic is available tomorrow 5:30 p.m. We are going to take the session. Okay. So it is part of the JRTP regular class. I will complete the Docker Compose in half an hour of time. Okay. I need half an hour. So to work on what is Docker Compose. Tomorrow we'll continue with that. Okay. So look at our course agenda. Whatever I have discussed. Yes. So in this, what is pending? We are able to do projects also with Docker, Spring Boot project and Python project. Now, any project you can do. Any project you can do because you know what is Docker file, how to create image, how to create container and all. So we know what is Docker, why Docker, Docker setup, Docker images, Docker containers, then Docker file, Docker registry, Docker compose. That we have not discussed today. Okay, I think it's late now. People are feeling hungry. So we'll continue tomorrow. at 5:30 p.m. with the same link for the Docker Compose. It will take hardly half an hour only to understand what is Docker Compose. Why we need to go for Docker Compose is when you want to manage multiple containers at a time. Like I want to run my boot application, I want to run database container, application container. Instead of running them separately, we will run by using Docker Compose concept. So Compose is used to manage multiple Docker containers at a time. Okay, that small topic is pending. We will discuss that in tomorrow's session. Okay, good. Online students, I hope you are clear with what we have done today. Thank you.